I think that we should talk about bagels.
Yeah, I think it's time to talk about bagels. Lighten the mood here.
We're lightening the mood. We're finding the hole in the the delicacy. I don't know.
That's good. That's a good metaphor.
That was good.
Tell me about your bagel experience in Staten Island, Mike.
Oh, thank you for the segue. Yes, so we have gone an entire month in Staten Island. I have been judiciously holding my opinions on the bagel culture here in order to give a full report at the conclusion. I don't recall the number offhand, but I would say I have had bagels from 16 different bagel shops this week.
That's one.
This
That's
month.
one every day, except for once a week.
Yeah.
You have a once a week non-bagel.
I try once a week to
surprise.
not have a bagel. For those that are not familiar with the program, I have a bagel pretty much every morning, sometime between 9 and 10, at a different location around our given walk route. I have an everything with scallion because that I wanted to have a control in order to judge each bagel store on an even playing field.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the scallion cream cheese is nice because it gives us a little complexity, see what you do with the different flavoring, but it isn't so off the deep end, and also something that people would more likely to be ordering. And then the everything bagel, generally the favorite bagel of everyone, but also allows for enough expression from the bagel store place if they're so inclined to express themselves. So, lots of interesting things to say about the Staten Island bagel culture that I had no idea existed prior to coming here. The first one, there are a lot of shops that are multi-function bagel shops.
Mm-hmm.
This is not something that you see as much in any of the other boroughs. If you do see it, I tend to discount it a little bit, insofar as I believed prior to coming here that if you're trying to do a lot of things and be a bagel store, you're not going to do the bagels as good as you could.
Of course. I mean, you're not getting your hair done at the auto mechanic.
No, you're not.
You want your bagels from a bagel store.
Yes. So because there were so many of these locations that I was observing in Staten Island, I wanted to be able to give them a fair shake. And so the first couple weeks I was going into these types of bagel and deli and superette, things like that. And it has some interesting aspects to it. It feels very much like a deli. And typically when you go into a bagel store, there are a very limited amount of options available to you. There's the deli case that has the cream cheeses and maybe some cold cuts, some lox, and then it has the bagel bins next to it, and then it'll have the fridges where you can get drinks. These bagel convenience store locations, basically you could do your grocery shopping and get the bagels.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty interesting.
Some of them are, because I can't eat the bagels, sometimes I like that.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they'll have like the cold salads and stuff too, like the mozzarella salad or like the egg salad or something like that. And then I can do my own review of the place, which I haven't actually, but I could. I'd at least have the option.
Yeah. There are even some locations that had seating, which is very unusual for a bagel store. This one place called Bagel Bistro had diner booths set up and then an outdoor area as well. So it just had so many functions. It also served a lot of Greek food. We didn't engage in any of that.
No.
But it was interesting to see, and definitely that location received high marks when I reviewed the interior of it. So one of the three metrics that I've been using for the bagel store reviews, the interior of the location, the bagel itself, and the cream cheese. So it was very interesting to go in and see what this setup was like. And as I said, not a very common situation in the rest of the city but fairly common here to be doing two things at once. Ultimately, after trying to give these places a chance for a couple weeks, I did come to the conclusion that the bagels at these locations are substandard. Or, I guess, maybe not substandard, they're standard, or maybe slightly above standard. However, if I'm going for a bagel, I don't want that experience. I'd like a good bagel.
Yeah.
So I really started to avoid them after the first couple weeks when I thought to myself, I'm seeing what I'm getting here. I tried to give it an open opportunity, but ultimately my preconceived notions were confirmed. These bagels are not getting the time and interest. They might not even be made here. It's unclear. And I mean, there was even some stores where I was going into and it felt like I was at a gas station convenience store where there was a little kiosk essentially where the bagels were. And then you were just one person manning that situation. And yet the exterior of the store is just all decals of these, bagel people dancing and having a good time. I give them credit for making the exterior of the place look like it was a bagel shop, but that was not the case.
It's a trick.
It's a trap.
Yeah. Bagel trap.
Yeah. Bagel trap. Don't go to that store. So that was one of the interesting things. Also, I would say a lot of those places are up in the north versus the south. The concentration of bagel stores on the whole is possibly greater than any of the other boroughs. Certainly greater than my casual experience walking through thus far. I mean, there are some bagel deserts in different boroughs. It's maybe a sparser bagel amount in the north of Staten Island versus the south, I will say that. But even in the north, it's pretty readily available. And then in the south, there are everywhere. I mean, and I think that kind of befits some of the suburban values that exist down there. The ability to get bagels is something that is treasured in the suburban area. So
yeah, the suburban New York areas.
Yes, for sure. So there's that. As far as the character of the bagel itself in Staten Island, what I've observed to this point, and I guess will remain my conclusion because we're not coming back here anytime soon, the bagels are large to extra large size, bigger than anything that we've encountered thus far. I'm sure
How big?
I mean,
I've seen them, but I'm asking. As big as your face?
I don't know.
One of them was.
Bigger. They were pretty close to, I don't know, what size would you consider that?
6 inches.
6 inches?
Diameter.
Well, I mean they're bigger than a tea plate. I would say that, some of the biggest ones.
Yeah.
Even the smallest.
Maybe even 8 inches.
Yeah, the smallest ones are still, very big.
Yeah.
The holes in the bagel, generally pretty small, very super puffy, and they are usually toppinged, because it's an everything bagel, toppinged on one side only. I think there were 2 locations that had toppings on both sides. But in general, just one side only. They weren't particularly creative with the toppings. It was, like garlic, poppy, sesame. There was some onions on a couple of them, but no rye seeds or different colored poppy or sesame seeds rather, or anything like that you might experience in different boroughs. There was not salt on a lot of them. There was salt made on the bagel, but then they, melted, I guess, during the process. So there was not a ton of extra salt. That, of course, is I consider a prerequisite to get into the good to very good bagel territory, is there being extra salt crystals on the bagel so that you can kind of really experience it while you're eating it, get that, that real punch of salt.
Yeah.
But again, they were in the process of making the bagel, so you can still experience it on the shell, in general. So they're big. They're generally like very chewy. There was some that were very difficult to chew, but by and large, they weren't too difficult to chew. And as far as some highlights, there were 3 bagel stores that I'll call out right now. There was Bagel Depot in Eltingville, which stuck out for me not because of the experience of eating the bagel I had, so much as it was strikingly apparent to me that it would be great with lox, which is not a part of the test right now. But there are some bagels that are meant to be bagels that are like sandwich bagels, like Russ and Daughters in the city. The bagel is actually not very good, I would say, but the consistency of the bagel is such that it really lends itself structurally to lox and to have it be more like a sandwich. And this was one bagel place that was like that. It did have a number of salt crystals, which is nice. The concentration of toppings was on the light side, which isn't necessarily bad. And in fact, for the lox situation, I think is pretty good because it would be just enough to give you the essence of the everything bagel, but really to put the focus on the lox itself. So I would go back potentially and try lox from the Bagel Depot location in Eltingville. That was one.
I guess it's good to know what kind of bagel you should going for.
Totally.
Like you're just getting your control bagel.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice of you to figure that out for people.
I mean, I'm not just figuring it out for people. It struck me.
You're figuring it out for yourself too.
Yeah. I mean, it really. It's not like I've had another bagel really during this trial where I thought this would be good with lox in the same way that it came to me. The second one is Bagels and Buns. That's in Westerly.
Bagels and Buns.
That's right. And that had exceptional cream cheese. And so the thing about this cream cheese, and the thing about cream cheese in general, is that I think the best cream cheese is warm, not cold. And you're going to get most of your cream cheeses served to you cold because they're in the deli case and they come out from there. And I get it. There's probably some, code that you have to adhere to as far as
food preparer, handler, whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
you'll get a B.
I mean, I think it would be better to have it out of the case while you're, at peak volume and distributing it that way. Now, if you're getting a warm bagel, then problem solved, right? The bagel warms the cream cheese and everything is copacetic. But in general, I don't think that cold cream cheese is very good. It's fine. It's good. I'll certainly eat it, and most of them are. But I think that the optimal version is warm. That said, this particular instance of cream cheese was served cold, but it was probably the best version I could conceive of it being cold. It was vegetal from the scallion. It was luscious and creamy. It had a quality like a Schlag or a whipped cream, a German whipped cream. It was very, very rich and silky. And the reason that I'm so anti-cold cream cheese typically is that it starts getting clumpy as a consequence. And then the texture is not correct, and it feels heavy, and it's not really where you want to be. Here, for whatever reason, I don't understand why, but it may have been that it was just the right time when I got it, where it had been whipped and then just reached that chilled point, but still retained some of the lightness. But whatever it was, it really exceeded my expectations. I gave it a 4.75 out of 5. I couldn't give it a 5 because I have to know it's a 5 when I have it.
I wonder if anyone's going to get a 5.
I don't know.
That's like a big, now that you're doing so many, if you were eating them all in a row and then you were rating them afterwards, you could definitely give a 5. But like doing it along the way, and like, you know, you have 9 months of bagels left, and we are going into Manhattan, and you would think that the bagels in Manhattan would be better than the bagels in Staten Island. I don't know. I don't know what's
I
gonna
wouldn't
happen.
necessarily say that, and I'll come to a
Okay.
full summation at the conclusion of all the bagels in a
Okay.
second. But yeah, that cream cheese, smoking hot because
But
it's
cold.
cold. And then I would say the best bagel that I experienced in the borough was Bagels on the Boulevard. That was in Dongan Hills on Highland Boulevard, unsurprisingly. And that had a really just solid combination of interior bagel and cream cheese. The interior was a bagel place for sure. It had a really great presentation of the cream cheeses, which doesn't necessarily matter a ton to me, but I like the intention. It had lox on display. It had lots of different pastries, if that's what you're looking for. Had a long line of drinks available for selection. It had morning talk radio playing on overhead.
Yeah.
And it's just like classic rock, you know, ridiculousness and like prank call show things.
Yeah, I love those.
And it had
So trashy.
yeah, and it had a bunch of classical bagel employees working behind the counter, very efficient. You know, got some good personality, and all the signage on there was on point, very specific to the store. It just set a great vibe. The bagel itself, great crunchiness to it. It was, the shell was like it snapped in your mouth, which was great. The topping ratio was very solid. Didn't have on both sides, again, not a thing that happens in Staten Island very often, but the distribution was very good, had salt on it, which is nice. And the cream cheese itself, not Bagels and Buns, mind you, but it was warmer, which I liked. It did benefit from some warmth of the bagel, which was nice, and it was just a smooth, tangy, had some of that scallion punch in there, and that was the best experience I had for Staten Island bagels. So close second was Bagel Hut, which was only a couple blocks down the street, and it had a much more substantial crunch to the bagel. It was something that it really strode the line between difficult to chew and unpleasant, and pleasantly difficult to chew, which is a very hard line to walk, but they managed to do it. I think the only reason that I didn't go with that as the superior bagel was that it almost felt more like a really great crusty bread than a bagel. I mean, it was definitely still a bagel, but it ventured into that territory, and I thought that it wasn't really proper to make that the best bagel as a consequence. So that is kind of the 4 highlights of bagel shops. As far as bagels on the whole go in the borough, it definitely has a profile. You know, large bagels, again, toppings on one side. Convenience is king down here, being able to have access to it and being able to, just to be able to go anywhere and have access to a bagel store, and to, be able to live anywhere and not have to worry about where you're going to get your bagels. I think is very important. But ultimately, I think it was a little too one note for me. Because everything was large and chewy. There was just not the variety of bagel looks that I would like to see, or at least that I get in other boroughs. There seems to be more of a I don't know. I don't know if it's just a copycat situation here in Staten Island or what.
Yeah.
But there's a lack of diversity on the bagels.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, I guess the other places just want their own characters.
Maybe.
They want to put their mark on it.
Yeah. Or maybe maybe there's more people starting bagel shops that have worked at another bagel shop around here or
Maybe.
something.
I guess I also might imagine that people kind of like stick to their neighborhood. Like if you go to a lot of the other boroughs, there's probably the local people that are getting their bagels, but then it's also like people are coming in to work, or they're like traveling through, or they're going to visit someone or whatever. It's like there's maybe a little more mobility than like around here. I don't know if people are really like going across the island to try a bait. Like you might just be, you have your spot and you go. It might be more like the vibe I get from Long Island, which I mean, you're from there, I'm not, but like it seems like you drive to the bagel place.
Yeah.
And you get your bagels and you go home. So you're not like, oh, I'm going to go to the other bagel place today. You're just
Right.
like, I'm going to the bagel place.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's fair. So, overall, very pleased to have experienced the culture of the bagel stores here,
Mhm.
and I look forward to taking this information to the other boroughs and forming an even fuller picture of what the landscape of city bagels looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.